Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
Konrad Lorenz 1941 treatise, Comparative Studies on the Motor Patterns of Anatinae, represents a monumental articulation of classical ethology's central tenets, a work whose influence extends far beyond the specific Behaviour family it documents. Its enduring power emanates from the internal architecture of its claims and the rigorous, almost anatomical, methodology it champions. This essay undertakes a direct evaluation of the claims, arguments, and evidence presented within this foundational paper, proceeding systematically through its logical structure. The purpose is to assess the work on its own terms, examining the coherence of its reasoning and the persuasiveness of its evidence as Lorenz himself laid them out. The analysis will focus overwhelmingly on the internal mechanics of the paper, exploring the framework it constructed and the vision of animal behaviour it so powerfully advocated, a vision that would define a discipline for generations. Section 1. The foundational premise of behavioural homology. The initial intellectual manoeuvre of Lorenz study is to posit animal behaviour as an object of biological inquiry, equivalent in substance and reliability to a physical organ. The paper's introductory sections establish the core premise that fixed, species-specific motor patterns can be treated as homologous characters. This claim is revolutionary in its implications. Lorenz argues that these behaviours, which he would later term fixed action patterns or outcoordinationen, are as much a product of genetic inheritance and evolutionary history as the bill shape of a mallard or the wing structure of a teal. The argument's strength lies in its analogical power. By asserting that a specific courtship display possesses the same heritable stability as a bone, Lorenz provides a conceptual warrant for applying the established methods of comparative anatomy to the seemingly ephemeral world of action. The evidence presented for this core claim is observational and comparative. Lorenz meticulously documents the stereotypy of these displays, highlighting how every male mallard, under the correct stimulus conditions, performs the grunt whistle in a form so consistent that it constitutes a species identifier. The logic is that such uniformity, across individuals and populations, points toward a deeply ingrained, genetically encoded blueprint. The paper thus reframes behaviour from a reactive, flexible response to environmental contingencies into a positive, heritable characteristic of the organism itself. This foundational claim is the bedrock upon which the entire subsequent analysis is built, allowing motor patterns to be dissected, catalogued, and placed within a phylogenetic context. The evaluation of this premise hinges on the acceptance of its central analogy. The entire paper is an extended demonstration of the utility and explanatory power that follows from treating behaviour as a stable, taxonomic trait. Section 2. The ethogram as a methodological instrument flowing directly from the premise of behavioural homology is the method Lorenz employs the creation of a comprehensive ethogram. This section of the work implicitly claims that behaviour can be objectively passed into discrete, repeatable, and quantifiable units. The ethogram, an exhaustive inventory of the behavioural repertoire of a species, is presented as the primary tool of ethological analysis. Lorenz's work on the Anatinae is a masterclass in its construction. He atomizes the continuous stream of duck and goose activity into a catalogue of distinct patterns: the head flick, the tail shake, the up and down movement of the head, and the intricate sequences of courtship. The internal argument is that these units are real, biological phenomena, not arbitrary constructions of the observer. The evidence for this is again their stereotypy and their consistent appearance in specific social contexts. For example, the description of the teal's courtship display is presented as a sequence of these fundamental units, a syntax of movement that is as rule-governed as grammar. The paper's claim to scientific rigor rests on this method. It proposes that by creating such ethograms for multiple related species, one can perform a systematic comparison. One can identify which behavioural units are shared, which are unique, and which are modified versions of a common ancestral pattern. This methodological claim is powerful because it offers a pathway to escape the perceived subjectivity of earlier natural history accounts. It transforms the observation of animal life into a form of data collection, where specific actions are the data points. The evaluation of this claim depends on the observer's ability to reliably identify and classify these motor patterns. Lorenz detailed, almost poetic descriptions, combined with his schematic drawings, serve as the operational definitions, the standards against which other observations can be calibrated. The ethogram, as presented here, is both the map territory of the organism's behavioral section, 3 analysis of specific courtship displays as fixed action patterns. The heart of the paper resides in its detailed comparative analysis of specific courtship displays across numerous species of Anatinae. This section makes the explicit claim that these complex sequences are the most conservative and phylogenetically informative of all behaviours. Lorenz dissects the displays of the mallard, pintail, adwall, shoveler, and others, treating each as a composite of individual fixed action patterns. The mallard's famous multi-part performance, involving the grunt whistle, the head up till up, and the down up movement, is presented as a paradigm case. Each component is described as a discrete, non-modifiable motor event, triggered by specific social cues from the female. The evidence provided for their innate and fixed nature is multifaceted within the paper's logic. First is the universal presence of the display in all healthy, sexually mature males of the species, which argues against individual learning. Second is the highly stylized and exaggerated nature of the movements, which lack immediate instrumental function and appear purely communicative. Third, and most critically for the comparative argument, is the variation of these displays across species. The pintail performs a similar sequence to the mallard, but with distinct modifications in timing and form, while the gadwall's display incorporates some elements but lacks others. This comparative evidence is used to build a powerful argument for descent with modification, just as the forelimbs of different mammals have variations on a single ancestral plan. The courtship displays of different duck species are presented as homologous variations on an ancestral Anatine display. The paper claims that one can trace the evolutionary pathway by observing how simple movements in one species appear as more elaborate, ritualized components in another. The internal coherence of this section is remarkable. It weaves detailed, compelling observation into a grand evolutionary narrative, where every flick of the head and shake of the tail becomes a letter in a phylogenetic alph. Section 4. The evolutionary mechanism of ritualization. Having established the existence of these homologous motor patterns, Lorenz's argument progresses to a claim about their evolutionary origin. He proposes a specific mechanism, ritualization. The paper argues that many of these elaborate social signals are derived from simpler, functional movements that have become formalized and decoupled from their original context. The concept of the intention movement is central here. A bird preparing to fly might first crouch and raise its tail. A bird about to drink might lower its head toward the water. Lorenz claims that these preparatory or incomplete actions can, over evolutionary time, be co-opted for communication. The mock preening movement seen in the courtship of the mandarin duck, for instance, is interpreted as a ritualized version of a functional feather maintenance behavior. Its form has become stereotyped, its location on the body fixed to a brightly colored patch of feathers, and its trigger is now a social cue from a mate. The original function is superseded by its new role as a signal. The evidence for this claim is inferential and based on comparative morphology. Lorenz identifies movements within courtship displays that bear a striking resemblance to functional actions like feeding, drinking, preening, or aggression. He then arranges species in a sequence that hypothetically illustrates the stages of this transformation from a barely modified intention movement in a primitive species to a highly stylized and emancipated display in a more derived one. This part of the argument represents a profound theoretical leap, providing a plausible evolutionary pathway for the genesis of complex communication. It explains how new signals can arise from pre-existing behavioral substrate. The evaluation of this claim rests on the plausibility of the proposed transformative sequence, while the paper cannot provide direct evidence of this long-term evolutionary process. Its comparative data creates a compelling and logically consistent picture of how such a transformation could unfold, lending significant explanatory depth to the overall phylogenetic project. Section 5. The synthesis of a behavioral phylogeny, the paper's ultimate achievement and its final, most ambitious claim, is the construction of a phylogeny of the Anatinae based almost exclusively on these behavioral characters. Lorenz synthesizes the vast observational data from the preceding sections into a branching diagram of evolutionary relationships. This act claims that the data derived from ethograms and their comparative analysis is robust enough to stand alongside, and in some cases even correct, phylogenies based on traditional morphological evidence. He argues, for instance, that the shared, complex courtship displays of certain species reveal deeper affinities than might be suggested by superficial similarities in plumage or bill shape. The phylogenetic tree presented in the paper is the culmination of the entire argument. Behaviour is an organ. It can be catalogued with an ethogram. Comparison reveals homologous patterns. These patterns evolved via ritualization, therefore, these patterns, and be used to reconstruct evolutionary history. Each step logically enables the next. The evidence for the final phylogenetic tree is the sum total of all the preceding comparative data. The placement of each species on the tree is justified by a detailed accounting of its behavioral repertoire, noting the presence of ancestral traits and the acquisition of derived ones. The shoveler, a mallard, and the pintail are grouped together because they share a suite of specific, homologous courtship movements absent in other lineages like the shelducks. This final section makes a powerful statement about the primacy of behaviour in understanding evolution. It suggests that what an animal does is as fundamental to its identity as what it looks like. While Lorenz acknowledges potential for convergence, the paper's overwhelming thrust is that complex, arbitrary signals like courtship displays are exceptionally reliable indicators of shared ancestry. The evaluation of this ultimate claim is an assessment of the entire project's success. The resulting phylogeny is presented as a coherent and compelling solution to the puzzle of Anatinae relationships, a testament to the power of the ethological method. Section 6. The releaser concept and the stimulus-response framework implicit throughout the analysis of courtship is the conceptual framework of specific stimuli triggering innate responses. While the paper focuses on the motor patterns themselves, it inherently claims that these actions are unlocked by equally specific environmental or social cues, termed releasers. The female duck's posture or call is presented as the key that fits the lock of the male's innate releasing mechanism, which in turn initiates the fixed action pattern of the courtship display. This section of the argument posits a world of animal perception that is highly filtered and schematic. The organism is not responding to the totality of its environment, but to a very small subset of sign stimuli that are biologically relevant. For instance, the male mallard's response is triggered by a specific posture from the female, not by a holistic appreciation of her as an individual. The evidence for this is the reliability and predictability of the interaction. The same stimulus, under the same motivational state, is claimed to produce the same behavioral output with machine-like consistency. This model provides a causal mechanism for the unfolding of social interactions, explaining their stereotypy and predictability. It portrays the social life of the Anatinae as a choreographed exchange of signals and responses, a biological ritual governed by a set of unwritten, inherited rules. The evaluation of this claim delves into the paper's underlying model of animal psychology. It presents a psyche that is programmed, Equipped with a set of specific perceptual filters and corresponding behavioral programs, the stimulus response framework, while providing immense explanatory power for the stereotyped interactions Lorenz describes, also defines the limits of the organism's behavioral flexibility. Within his system, the power of the releaser concept is its parsimony. It explains complex social sequences with a very simple and elegant causal loop, reinforcing the paper's overall theme of an orderly, genetically determined behavioral. In conclusion, Lorenz's 1941 study of the Anatinae is a masterwork of argumentation, a complete and self-contained intellectual system. Its claims are arranged in a precise, hierarchical sequence, with each section building logically upon the last. The foundational assertion of behavioral homology provides the license for the epigrammatic method. The application of this method to courtship displays yield the data for comparative analysis. This comparison, in turn, reveals evidence for the evolutionary mechanism of ritualization. The sum of these insights is then synthesized into a novel, behavior-based phylogeny. Finally, the entire system operates through the proposed mechanism of innate releases triggering fixed patterns. The work's profound and lasting impact stems from this internal coherence and its rhetorical force. Lorenz offered more than a collection of interesting observations about ducks. He presented a programmatic vision for a new science, animal behavior, complete with its own theoretical foundations, methodological tools, and grand explanatory goals. The paper's claims, assessed on their own terms, form a powerful and persuasive intellectual edifice. It provided a lens of such compelling clarity that, for a time, the entire animal kingdom seemed to resolve into a magnificent, ordered tapestry of homologous motor patterns, each a testament to the deep history of life. The work's significance lies less in the ultimate finality of its specific phylogenetic conclusions and more in the revolutionary power of the questions it asked and the unequivocally biological framework it constructed to answer them.
We really appreciate you tuning in to this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.